All right, we're live. Modern Relics Podcast. I'm Angel. He's Lucky. We're back.
I am still.
Still.
We are back. 2 weeks in a row. We're a little late today, but once again, my fault. Sorry. Tattooing.
Imagine us being back. Oh man, what a week, dude.
It's been a crazy week.
It's been
news-wise and
really fucking
work-wise. How has your week been?
Emotional. Like wrought with anticipation and excitement. Like a bunch of stuff going on. First of all, I am making my not so triumphant return to the Hot Import Nights car show after 20 years of absence.
Yeah.
Because it was a terrible experience, and we'll go through that story one day on the stream or the podcast. But essentially, I took my dad out there one time when I was in a car club years ago, and then totaled my car while I was out there because it had rained and hadn't rained for months, and then it rained, and then I was on a hill and car exploded because it slid down a hill into another car. Dad was okay. I took the brunt of the damage so Dad would be okay, thus totaling the car. So hopefully this is a better turnout. So I've been kind of getting everything ready for that because that happens on Saturday. But the exciting part is I have had a camera that I bought in 2020 that's a Lumix S5, and I love Panasonic cameras for hybrid shooting cameras. And it's everything I've ever wanted, except the autofocus really sucks, and they've notoriously had bad autofocus because they used what's called a contrast-based autofocus system, where more modern cameras use what's called a phase detect autofocus system. And basically, there's little points along the lens on the back of the sensor where if something's moving in it, you can snap to that thing. And then AI helps things get better and on and on. But they've always stayed in this lane, so they've always had good stuff. But why that's bad for a guy like me is I typically shoot stuff that move very fast, like motorcycles or cars or, stuff like that. Right. So when your lens is hunting in autofocus, because as a solo shooter, it's very difficult to capture these things. So that's why principally most of the stuff that I make is alone by myself doing something extreme sports related. And usually there's a GoPro glued to my helmet, not because I prefer GoPro to other stuff. It's the only thing that can contend with ease of use, right? Well, years later, they finally released phase detect autofocus in conjunction with contrast based in the same camera that I have that's like been out since let's say late 2023. And I'm gearing up to pull the trigger and get this thing. And today they announce there's a better one than that. And we're just announcing it today, and it's going to launch in June. And it's way faster than even the one that you wanted. So maybe you shouldn't buy that camera just yet because there's another one right behind it. Now, there are tiers to this, right? Like there's photocentric cameras that have way better megapixels and stuff like that that are more pleasing images. They're sharper, they're higher resolution, but they come with downsides too. Like if you shoot an 8K video, first of all, that's a huge file size. It's hard to edit. 2, what human being can see in 8K. And 3, the camera's going to overheat if you shoot on it for more than 10 minutes, right? So this is like not the top of the line camera. It's the newest one in the line that I've been using forever. And I was really excited, but now there's another one. And I'm like, shit, now I have to wait till June and not buy the camera that I want. But I wasn't expecting a big announcement today from Lumix, so that was fun. So now all the hype is building again where the embargo's been released today. So all these videos are coming out, and I'm just checking out all this cool shit so I could finally upgrade the camera that I love using. It's just hard to focus on stuff, which has always been the bane of its existence. But it's the same camera you and I use to shoot the live sessions at the house.
Yeah.
That I put on the tripod. So, hey, Cynthiana. So I'm like pretty hyped for that. But yeah, going back to HIN this weekend, new camera coming out that I'm pretty hyped on. That's cheap compared to like their super high end line, because those are ridiculously expensive. And other than that, it's about it. Work,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
It's been my week. That and I got a mystery haircut. I asked them to trim a little bit off, and they took like 3 inches of hair, 3.5 inches of hair away. So I was like,
I've seen your hair that short in years.
Yeah. I was like, fuck. Okay. I guess I just have short hair now. Back to the ball cap game. Rocket City Trash Pandas.
Did you get that one that I sent you over for the, what was it? The something clams, and it had like a clam with a pearl in it.
Yeah.
Right on the front. That's a real team.
Yeah. Yeah. All these are minor league baseball teams. This one's in Alabama. And then there's a couple other that are hilariously named that are like in South Carolina and stuff. I think there was like, one of them was like a jackalope, which I think they had taken from some like 90s or 80s television show, like a comedic, like America's Funniest Videos or something. Anyway, that's like their mascot. So, but yeah, I'm pretty hyped on them.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would actually, Aaron and I want to go. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're not a minor league team. They're kind of like the Harlem Globetrotters for baseball, and they're called the Savannah Bananas. Yeah. And they're incredible. Nice. They're absolutely, and they're like selling out. They started small. This guy wanted to buy a minor league team, couldn't fill the seats, so he just kind of reinvented it and made it kind of carnival-esque, and they all dance and they're all like doing flips in the outfield while they catch baseballs. They're incredible ball players, but put on this totally different show.
Yeah. And
it just started building and building, and then they went on tour, and now they're building other teams that are like the Washington Generals for the, and now they're like filling major league stadiums.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. I'd love to go see those guys at some point in time, but your hat just always gets me. I love that Trash Bandos hat. So as far as my week, not really anything crazy. Not like I found new family members or anything. That was last week.
Imagine if that happened weekly though. Like,
it almost does in my family line. If you ask my kids, they're just like, "Oh, great, another branch, perfect."
Nice.
But as far as just like my regular week, it was just work, and that's about it. So nothing crazy. But yeah, but outside of that, it's just been kind of a very busy week in kind of the news and the world and things happening. And so, but yeah, it's been a interesting week. What do we got on the docket today?
We got a lot, starting with Trump's airplane.
Yeah.
There's a replacement Air Force One being built by Boeing that's behind schedule. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 2 years behind, and they're asking for way more than what was budgeted for it and what they had asked originally. Weird. I know, strange. Boeing is behind, and also, yeah. So, I
wonder if Blue Origin and probably chip in on something like that.
Oh, that would be hilarious.
Maybe they could get like Katy Perry to do a song and a release for it.
They're like, it doesn't actually fly, but it is a really great soundstage.
You can take pictures of it though.
Yeah, for sure. But as far as Trump's new plane, reports came out that Qatar, which I believe is that Saudi Arabia?
I think so, because it's one of the race stops on the Formula One schedule. So I know they're like, it's a country in West Asia, occupies the Qatar Peninsula on the northeastern coast of the Arabian Peninsula. Yeah, it shares its sole land border with Saudi Arabia to the south. The rest of the territory is surrounded by the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Bahrain.
So Qatar, having been known for the past 30 to 40 years as one of the main funders and sources of a lot of global terrorism, and claiming so. They've claimed all of it and are not a friend to the West, typically. They have offered because Trump and the delegates have been going over to the Middle East to do peace treaty kind of talks and going to each country, trying to make, good relations with all of them, or diplomatic kind of groundwork that they could have done with all of them. Well, apparently Qatar offered to buy Trump, and I think it's specifically Trump, if I'm not mistaken, a new Air Force One, to give him one, to say, we have one and it's top of the line. We will give it to you as a gift. And there's a lot of uproar about it, like whether or not politicians are even allowed, if the president of the United States is allowed to take that type of gift, because it could be considered a bribe, or that you're in the pocket of another organization or country. And on a local level, that is true. You can't even take a candy bar or have someone buy you a cup of coffee. So an enormous $billion jet definitely probably falls into the category of suspicion of, like, oh, are you now in their pocket?
Yeah.
So I do get that argument. And also I've heard that it transfers over to Trump when he's out of office. But
Oh,
I've also heard that it doesn't. So there's conflicting reports on that. That being said, he got hit by questions while he was signing documents in the Oval Office, and a reporter hit him and said, how do you even figure that this is okay? How do you even figure that this is the type of gift that the American people will look at and not see as a bribe? Or, is this even legal? And he looks at her, he stops writing, he looks at her, he goes, look, I'm trying to be diplomatic here. And when someone offers you something, you accept it. Doesn't mean you owe them anything, but you accept it in good grace and good nature, and then you move on.
yeah.
And you then deal with other things. He's like, and to the point I think he was trying to make is that, knowing that the point is peace in that area, and him trying to play diplomat and trying to be the guy who goes over there and tries to make deals and actually cause peace in that region, which is what he's known for. When he's offered a gift of that level, of that substantiation, of a huge gift like that, in their culture, it is a slap in the face not to accept a gift. If they offer you a gift, they think that is, if you don't accept it, it is actually rude and you are insulting them.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of stuck in the middle here, where he has to, or he will be spitting in the face of the government of Qatar. So I see arguments on both sides. Now, do I think that they should sweep that thing head to toe, which I'm sure they will? Absolutely. But, that goes without saying.
I couldn't even begin to imagine the aeronautical engineering concerns and security concerns of accepting and using a gift like that. Their Wikipedia is all over the board. I don't know much about Qatar specifically, because it's not been a real hot button of study in the Middle East compared to other areas for me. Qatar, officially a semi-constitutional monarchy, where the wide powers retained by the monarchy have it bordering an absolute monarchy ruled by the Al Thani family. And that dynasty has been ruling Qatar since the family house was established in 1825. So, least electoral democratic country in the Middle East. In the 21st century, they emerged as both a major non-NATO ally of the United States and a middle power in the Arab world. And they're like the largest per capita exporters of liquefied natural gas and stuff. So their wealth is like astronomical for the area.
Right.
And then their media, the geopolitical power, is through their Al Jazeera media network, which I have heard of a lot. But then it says, and reported support for rebel groups financially during the Arab Spring and all that stuff. Qatar forms part of the Gulf Cooperation Council. So kind of doesn't, I mean, they're on paper a non-NATO ally and stuff. But according to Qatar's constitution, Sharia law is the main source of Qatari law.
Yeah.
And then it says religion, the Islam at 65.5% is the official religion, Hinduism 15%, Christianity 14%, Buddhism 3%, 1.9% other, and less than half at 49% of the ethnic groups as listed by Wikipedia in 2019 is Arab or South Asian. So crazy. But they host Western sports events and stuff from time to time. So
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know much about them. I'll have to do some homework. But I wouldn't even begin to understand the security complications to something like that. Wonder, has Boeing said anything about it? Hey, we'll step on the gas pedal a little bit. We're just trying to make sure the doors of the aircraft don't fly off on descent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're making sure the blinkers work.
That's kind of a rock and a hard place, but you have to accept the gift in that diplomatically that's the right thing to do.
Right.
Doesn't mean he has to use it.
Yeah.
I guess. Interesting.
And man, they could use it for any number of things, you know, but
Yeah.
accept the gift because that's the smart diplomatic move. But yeah, it's one of those things where he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. And I think he's just making a calculated move of diplomacy on this one. And there's I don't think there's a big, as much as it looks on the surface, if you really think about it, I don't think it's as controversial as it looks on the surface.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So
it's not a crazy Trojan horse.
I mean,
and if it is, fair, it's a pretty containable one.
Yeah. And to be fair, I mean, whose fault is this really? Boeing's.
Right.
You know, Boeing should have had that plane already. You know, we would not have needed the gift at all if Boeing had actually just.
It would be funny if it is a Boeing aircraft that's just a couple years old with some armor plating on it, and they just slapped a new paint job on it and gave it to him and be like, still a Boeing aircraft, but here you go. What say you, Boeing?
Right.
What else we got? You wanted to talk about tariffs a little bit, and I think on the board it was, are tariffs working?
Yeah, and as of today, yeah, and even CNN is actually conceding it. CNN is actually calling it Trump's miracle tariffs. And so, yeah, everybody's capitulating down to China. China even capitulated. And everyone's like going, oh, he backed down. I was like, he did the big ask. That's what he always does. He throws in really high and and whittles them down. But we're still now getting way more than we ever have from China. And so, no, eggs, even eggs. Like if we look at eggs right now, eggs are U.S. egg prices plummeted 12.7%, biggest monthly drop since 1984.
Which it's fair to say we don't get our eggs from China or Taiwan and stuff. And I had this conversation with a friend of mine earlier this last week, and it's very hard to quantify because this is a very big picture approach, a tariff in general, especially the way it's being leveraged in the United States. And the short to midterm pain points are obvious when the consumer gets passed down the import tax, right? So it's very easy to complain about it when the squeeze is on, but the idea here is that you're driving industry back into the United States where you won't have tariffs like that. The problem, which I think we've discussed ad nauseum, so I won't dig up the horse and beat on it some more out of the grave, but the idea here is twofold. One, how long would it take to bring industry back to America? Because we've spent generations hauling ass as fast as we can to outsource these things, for one. And for two, who the fuck is going to work those jobs? You know what I mean? Like, how do you drive interest in self-preservation and the American dream back into jobs where most of the kids that are under 20 years old have no concept of doing anything that isn't instantly delivered and on some sort of rewards program. It's very hard to imagine that you're going to get them up to hitting the assembly line, so to speak, in whatever indice that may be.
Well,
So kind of tough.
let me push back on that a little bit, because when our local community college here, NIC, it's been hotly debated. There's a lot of controversy around it due to a bunch of other stuff that we won't get into. But one of the things that I really wanted to do is let it see it fail and then rebuild it as a trade school, because there's something about Idaho has more natural resources than pretty much any other state in the continental United States. As far as timber, as far as minerals and rock, as far as mining goes, and it is called the gem state for a reason. There is an enormous amount of natural resources here, which we're being handcuffed by the EPA and a lot of other reasons, but that's not the point. The point I'm trying to make is that, like, we could be the Silicon Valley for natural resources in the state of Idaho if we were allowed to do so. And what I think what we need to do is, with the trade school situation, is teach kids, hey, you don't go to college and get these degrees for stuff that you're going to be working at some, restaurant with a degree that you're not using,
Right.
or in retail that you're not using. Why don't you go to trade school and learn the logging industry? Why don't you go to trade school and learn, the different types of elements in the mining industry and all these other things, and actually give them, because a lot of kids just aren't suited for college.
Right.
They just want to work, but they also know that I can't work a wage that's going to afford me a lifestyle where I can support a family on it and buy a home on it with just one income,
right,
while someone raises our kids and we're comfortable. Like, my parents had that opportunity, my grandparents had that opportunity. We don't have that opportunity anymore, and I think it's there. And I think that there are people, especially in rural areas, who just aren't up for college. And I think a lot of these jobs in the industry do have a marketplace for workers, but we've been pushing them in other directions, saying this is the only way you're going to make a living that's actually going to support you. When in fact, if we just kind of flip it and go, actually, we do have industry here. You can buy a house. You can support a family with working off of a blue collar job that you went to a trade school for and actually did that. I think that's actually a reality, but we just have to cut the red tape and flip some things and get that momentum going, rather than a momentum in the wrong direction.
I think it's a potential reality, and I think you're offering a solution to my problem, which is great.
Yeah.
But right now, there are no real trade schools other than a handful of big dollar tech ones and a handful like technical institute ones for, like, mechanic stuff and this and that. But yeah, there aren't many trade schools out there left. So we definitely need more of those, because it's very.
I think we take anything like Ivy League, they'll always be Ivy League. Yeah. But anything about like mid-grade level or any junior college, turn them into trade schools. Turn them into trade schools. The plumbing industry is so lacking in helpers, and people make enormous amounts of money in plumbing because they can charge whatever they want.
Right.
Because there's few.
There's no more middle class.
Right. And then, like,
right.
I know, like, in the state of Idaho, there are only 4 for the entire state property surveyors. So, and I know one of them, and he doesn't need to do it. He just does it. He's an older guy. He owns the only the only private gold mine in all of the country.
Interesting.
Right. So him and his wife, they're the only ones who own this private gold mine. His name's Dar, and Dar is a guy who actually is a surveyor and can make money hand over fist, because he just went to the next rung of that and of that educational system, which is through surveying,
Yeah.
and he gets to be outside all the time, but he gets to charge out the ass because no one else is doing it, and his waiting list is forever. Now, there's all of these industries that tons and tons of these young people, which I think the shift is happening as we speak for the 20 and under crowd, maybe even 23 and under, where they're seeing the path of all the millennial kids that went poorly. It went south. And they're like, they have all these degrees and all this debt, and all they do is complain on the internet about all of this. I don't want that. And so they are kind of shifting and going, I want to do something that I can come home to a family, but I can provide for that family, stuff like that.
I hope so.
I think there's a cultural shift going on with younger people that will actually feed into, if we give them a place to go and actually provide these kind of take all the junior colleges across the country, turn them into trade schools. They're pointless otherwise. You're feeding into the ether. You're feeding them into the abyss if you're just sending them out there. Give them tangible, realistic job opportunities that they can feed a family on, and you'll have an entire generation of people, of families and people that are happy and contented and satisfied, and you're going to see a healthier country that way. But right now it's so sick because of the education system and because of what's been going on a cultural level that, but this all ties into bringing industry here,
Right.
opening up industry.
That's the big picture point, right? Like that's the idea. That's the idea. Because to your point, like otherwise, if you wind up going to school and doing whatever, and you're feeding another body into the Occupy Wall Street movement,
Yep.
So, yeah, I think in short, they're working. There's still going to be some bumps ahead. It's just very easy to demonize the short-term effect because it feels ouchy. But this was both of our prediction.
Yeah.
Just shortly after the election, like, yeah, this is going to suck. Your Amazon order is going to be expensive. The camera that I'm looking forward to, I'm going to wind up paying a couple $100 more for example. Panasonic's, I think, a Japanese company, so maybe not, at least not as bad. But that kind of stuff where you're like, you don't know, because also private industry jacks prices up even when they're not paying. The tariff doesn't take place until tomorrow, so we're going to jack up all the prices today just because we can, kind of thing. But yeah, I think big picture, it is working. I'm interested. I would love to see the CNN comment that you mentioned about the Trump's miracle tariff thing working, because I'm sure the producers are probably shitting their pants even having to put that on the ticker. But
I know, right? But yeah, let's see.
I can dig it out after the show too. That's just hilarious to me.
Trump's tariff. Yeah, Trump's tariffs could boost some made in America small business. There's actually quite a few of them.
Wait, we have small businesses left in America? Shocking.
The implications of Trump's big bet on tariffs, like, it's literally almost all relatively positive when you bring up CNN and bring up their headlines on this.
Well, in the stock market's a big indicator of this too. Like there's been a slow but notable rebound over the last few weeks, since it went down a lot after the initial tariffs were announced and stuff, going in specifically into March, April. But I think it's a net positive. It's just a little prickly in the short term, but we knew that would be that way.
Yeah, we knew it would be that way, and we both predicted that.
Yeah.
My surprise is how it didn't last very long. If the trend is going the way it looks, and it's already on the rebound, and all of the other countries are kind of folding into being a part of the tariff situation. Um, it took less time than I thought. I thought it was going to be a longer hurt period.
Yeah.
And, right now, like all of the tattoo supply companies are putting out messaging saying, hey, tariffs, we're going to have to charge more. We're going to have to charge
Right.
more. It's not our fault. It's not our fault. And we all expected that to come because, 90% of our gear and equipment and everything comes from China. All the steel from our needles all the way up is all the cartridges, everything. It's all China built. You can get it from an American company, but the American company got all of its parts from China. So like,
Oh
it's
yeah,
one of
like
those-
I had another conversation about that too, where I was like, look, I can bemoan, made in China stuff all I want, but if I were to walk around and look at literally every object that I own, I have a car built in Japan, one assembled in Mexico, I've got a made in China phone, mouse, anything you look at, these computer screens, it's unavoidable. So it's not like I'm standing on the I'll only buy American kind of thing,
right.
Even my firearms are Croatian, go figure. But that kind of stuff. It's difficult to point fingers at that, but this is the world economy as we know it. This is the premise of trade, right? So you kind of can't avoid it as a consumer, unless you're like hard off the grid and Amish and stuff. But yeah, so I'm not trying to play holier than thou, I guess is my point.
But until we start opening up new steel plants in this area and the EPA gets off our backs for it. And like 30 plus years ago, when they shut down the timber industry and the mine industry here in Idaho, and they shut it down and they made a bunch of people, including your dad, lose their
livelihood,
careers, their livelihood.
Yep.
And instead of fixing the problem, they just shut it down. Now, 30 years, let's fast forward 30 years. They have the technology to actually make all this stuff clean and not dump a bunch of lead in the water and all that stuff. They have the ability to do it, but the EPA won't let them. Yeah. So here's the thing. The EPA isn't a legal government entity, much like the ATF isn't. So kick them out. Do things right, do things clean, and rebuild those industries. We have a ton of natural resources here, but we could do steel plants. We could do, all the mining in the world. We could do a ton of forestry and logging. We could do all sorts of stuff that could build industry, build jobs, build homes, build families, and actually create the stuff that we need here in the United States, plastics, all of it can be done here. And it would be very easy to do. We've got the resources, we've got the land, we've got the manpower, we've got it all. We just need the red tape to be cut in order for us to do it here.
What kicks my ass about this, and over again, you could point to almost any industry, but the whole, this has to be for the reduction of emissions and stuff. Like, all you're doing is outsourcing those emissions to a different part of the same planet that we all live on. I mean, like but
it's over there.
Germany's a sterling example of like shutting down all their nuclear plants, which takes a long time to spin down and spin up. So it's not like you can flip a switch. They become exclusively dependent on sourced energy from other countries as a result, where the prices are so astronomically high that the only alternative they have is to open up fucking coal plants. It's like, okay, well, clues for sale, folks. Like, we're outsourcing all of this pollution that you're trying to rid the planet of to places like China and India, which are creating similar or greater parts of energy production out of this, the worst possible industrial way to create it. Doubling coal plants and burning tires in North Africa. Like, it's fucking absurd. It's like, what are we doing? And then you look at the GDP producers have said carbon emissions and stuff versus other parts of the world, and it's a drop in the ocean. Yeah. And that's the part where it's like, and they know it, but people continue to be like, no, we just gotta EPA the shit out of some stuff, and
if you model it after Europe, look at what's going on in Europe right now. They're having full blackouts all over Europe, like because they
Yeah.
can't keep up with the energy grid because they're using alternative energy, green energy sources, and it's maxing them out.
Yeah,
And they
not
are
not to pick
literally
on Germany again, but like while solar may or may not be there because it's a relatively sunny place, they are also starved of wind. So all of, there's periods of wind drought in that country where the energy production off of solar doesn't exist, and often for years on end. So that they have to turn back to coal in a pinch to cover the median base rather than pay exorbitant extra overhead prices on importing the energy where they're almost exclusively dependent on places like Eastern Europe to get there. Like,
yeah.
it's fucking absurd. Like, the playbook's been played. This is like my argument with the communism and socialism. It's like, well,
Right.
if we could look at the entirety of the 20th century as our barometer for success, in the
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of lives lost to ideology like that, like, why are we going backwards with some of this stuff? Because I think the number 1 and 2 countries in order of purity of refining oils into carbon producing fuel are the United States and Canada. They're great at it. Like,
Yeah.
And we already have really strict emission standards as it is, but it blows my mind because they know it. And that's still the narrative. It's like you're simply shifting left the production of carbon emissions to another country that is not as well developed as we are at
Out of sight, out
mitigating
of
that
mind.
stuff. You
Yeah.
know?
So, as long as we're not doing it, we can at least pretend like we're good people.
You
It's
know what
kind of-
naturally occurring shrubs, greenery, and trees love more than anything else?
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
So
Right.
anyway, yeah. You say EPA and I start tangenting, but
I know.
uh,
But yeah, it's that's what's going on with the tariffs. So far, I guess the future will hold, and we will see.
Yeah.
So,
hey,
but,
do you know when the Chicago Cubs won the World Series last?
1911,
I don't know either.
1918.
Didn't even look it up. Couldn't tell you. You're probably right.
Okay.
But I know when they won the papacy. That was 2025. Chicago's in there, friends. It is a hotbed for popes, it turns out.
I've seen so many memes of like the communion's going to be done with like hot Italian beefs and like deep dish Pope jokes and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, it's great. Yeah.
So yeah,
I wasn't expecting this guy to win. Like I sent my fair share of bald eagles when they're like, the Pope's American, and I sent him the like eagle turning around and looking at the camera kind of thing. But to be honest, I don't know if this is a good thing for the Catholic Church, just as a follow-on story.
Yeah.
Did you see that video of the girl like at confirmation with like her brother and her single mom, and she starts flipping out where it's like, oh my God, Mom, it's your ex. Like, it's your ex-boyfriend's
Bob.
the fucking Pope. Like, yeah. Just
she's like my wife. She's like, my mom banged the Pope.
Yeah. Imagine holding that kind of I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Trump
what's funny
card.
is that now all of these people are coming, like all of his old like high school buddies are all coming out of the woodworks going, Bob,
Yeah.
really? And then like his 2 brothers, one of them's like this super MAGA guy. Like he's just like the Trumpiest Trump guy. And then the other brother's like super shy, but like is just going, I guess my brother's the Pope now. Like,
Yeah.
it is really surreal for this to happen, first American Pope, but him from being like, Chicago, which is the windy city, and it's not because of the wind. So,
do you remember like the opening narration for Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, where he's announcing all of the guys that are in the friend group, and then he gets to the one dude and he's like, soap is called soap because he likes to remain clean, and he's like never getting into nefarious stuff. That's instantly the narrative that I heard playing in my head when they got to that reserve brother that was bitching about him not answering his FaceTime or whatever when he called him. I was
Yeah.
just like, oh, you're that guy in the group. That's hilarious. But I can't wrap my arms around this one. Like, what a weird turn of events, because this is not the cardinal I expected
No,
to
and
ascend into the papacy.
to be fair, honestly, I feel like it was a calculated move to very specifically um, drive a wedge between Catholics and Trump. He's
No,
been a
because there's
very
a
out,
separation between church and state. I think I
um,
read that
there,
somewhere.
yeah, but there is a very clear, um, like they would not have allowed this. They would not have given the Americans a pope if there wasn't some agenda for it, especially that quickly. Because what was it, a day? We were talking about this could take, and I just started watching. I haven't finished it last night, but I started watching Conclave last night.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually very curious to finish this up, which I'll do tonight, and I'll give you guys a review on it next week.
Yeah.
But I want to like kind of explore, and I got about halfway through. They were just locking themselves in and getting ready for this, but there was conspiracy stuff afloat in the background. But
I mean,
that being
according to
said,
the internet historical texts, this process has in history taken as long as a year to
yeah.
select a pope. So yeah, in relative terms, this was lightning fast.
So, and he wasn't a front runner. He was on the list, but he wasn't somebody that people were taking real heavy bets on.
Yeah, so somebody had to reach in this draft order.
Right.
They
and
were
my
picking
guess,
a home team.
My guess is um, that he fit a particular agenda. He fit something that they knew that they could. So I wrote this on because everybody was like, yeah, tariffs are working so well that even the Pope is made in America.
Oh, there you go.
And I was like,
Lest we do
here's the
some
thing.
due diligence on the man's background, coming from
Right.
Chicago and all, but hey,
I
sure.
was like, he was very pro-vaccine pushing.
Mhm.
He is extremely open borders.
Yes.
Was pro BLM and George Floyd. Is a climate activist.
Yep.
Is an anti-Trump registered Republican. Waffles on LGBT issues, is an open globalist, and although he's been fairly pro-life, we'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah.
I was like, and they chose him from the deep bench to use him as an American wedge against the Trump administration. But hey, you know, and it, as I was talking, so don't take offense to this, but I was talking to a group of Protestants. I was like, hey, he ain't my Pope, and he holds as much authority over my life as Walt Disney.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the reality, is that like he's at best middle of the road on social stuff, but really, quite frankly, he's very progressive.
Yeah. As was
And-
the last pope, which we covered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And one of his
and that's
selectees
something-
as well. For
Yeah.
like cardinal selectees. Yeah. Also, one of my favorite lines at a pub, by the way, is take a sip and then look at the waiter and scowl and say, "This is Protestant whiskey." And then they're like, "What?" And they start laughing after a while. Yeah, time will tell. Like, you could be right. I don't understand the playbook where the whole church would turn against the American president like that for reasons that remain unclear, but they won't for long. So I suppose I'll be along for the ride. But yeah, he's definitely not a right-wing loyalist, that's for sure, even if there's an R on his name. And I think the outspokenness of some of the things that he said publicly are kind of supportive of that, but time will tell.
Yeah. Yeah, the you know, all the groypers on X were defending him up until, because he had been kind of, they don't care about any of the other stuff, even though it supposedly aligns with their moral principles, and he is against all of the things that they have principles on, but like he he hasn't been too friendly with Israel, and so they were okay with it until this last week. He actually made a proclamation saying that no, they are our allies and that we should actually be defending them.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they went, oh no, and they've
Mhm.
all been freaking out and flipping out and like. So I was actually like, okay, like
Yeah.
what? This is a twisty world we live in. Like there's like it's so weird. But now what? Now like do these Latin mass loyalists, you know, like the SSPX guys, what do they do with this? Because they weren't necessarily friendly with the past pope, you know, and but at the same time would defend him because of his stance on Israel. And then this one, they were like, as long as he keeps that stance, we'll overlook all of his other things. Well, now he's made a declaration that kind of counteracts that. So this is going to put a lot of turmoil in the certain Latin mass
Yeah.
regions of the Catholic Church. And so we shall see fireworks before the 4th of July, I believe.
I think so too. I mean, this coming from a group of people that were openly backing Kanye West, and I saw a thing. I think Shapiro put it out where he was critiquing one of Kanye's songs, singing about like Adolf Hitler and a bunch of stuff. And
Yeah,
I was just
Hitler
like,
is the name of the song.
I was just like, my God. Anyway,
Yeah,
from the brilliant minds that brought you support of people like that, it just seems like their true colors are showing more and more. So
yeah. Hey, who would you rather be at a party with, Kanye West or P. Diddy?
do I have to wear all white to this party? And or is it a bring your own Vaseline or baby oil type of event?
Yeah, those are the questions that need to be asked. But whew,
Dude, Diddy's on trial.
he is on trial. Yeah, and it is going a little wild already. It's the first day
Yeah.
just happened.
Where are the
But
witnesses? Where are all these people? Like, I don't know how 50 Cent
apparently-
was on this from the jump, but he was on this from the jump, dude.
Here he was. He was.
I saw some
Yeah.
sick memes too, where it's like the jury has been selected for the Diddy trial, and it's just 12 P Diddy's all wearing different colored suits, like photocopied onto the bench in all three of the rows. How weird do you think this is going to get? And how I'm going to say my surprise level will be 2% when all these random ass celebrities get named up as being part of whatever the hell P Diddy was a part of that gets unearthed
Right.
in this trial.
Yeah, no,
Like,
I have
and
a
further,
feeling
what do you
that-
think's going to happen to him? Like this one's got me. Like, I have no idea where to go on this one.
if he survives through the trial,
Yeah.
and so if he doesn't find himself in a situation where,
Like an
he
Epstein
has-
situation.
yeah, like an accident situation, quote
Yeah.
unquote. If he makes it through, they will use him as a sacrificial lamb.
Yeah.
They have to. There's no way that they can pull him out of this and save face and not expose more people.
That's what's got me. It's like how many people are going to get pointed out,
Oh.
and how much of the light will be illuminated on people that you expect and people you don't expect. You know.
If anyone thinks for a second that P. Diddy was the ringleader, that a guy of his caliber and his intelligence was the guy who was orchestrating all of this,
I'm
no,
going to
he
take
was
a
a
hard
middleman.
pass on that one. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a middleman, and they knew that at some point there was a risk that because that he's not very bright, was going to get swept up, and they were willing to throw him overboard if they had to, but they had to be careful with it. And but yeah, already there's the first witness went missing.
Yep.
And then today, apparently in trial, it was so wonky and so crazy that I saw videos of people saying, I don't know how they're going to be able to air some of the stuff because it's so gross.
Yeah.
Like the things that were happening were so gross that it's going to be hard for news organizations to navigate just the facts and be able to put it on national television or in any other kind of social media source. Like, it is so beyond the pale of bizarre sexual misconduct that, like,
Well,
it's
and they do a fair job of not covering a bunch of stuff anyway. I also
Right.
wonder how much of this is just going to get brushed under a rug. You know, like how many people are still talking about Jeffrey Epstein right now? Like on the
not
daily,
enough.
you know,
Not
how
enough.
many people are talking
Yeah.
about Luigi every day? Like a lot of the stuff, the Trump assassination people, like over and over again, we have these like holy shit moments, like left and
Like
right, really in the last
historical
2 years that
moments.
are absolutely time-stoppingly crazy, and they're just not talked about. They're not followed up on. Like, so I kind of wonder if that's the play too.
It's
Because to your point,
possible.
I don't know how they're going to put, and maybe him being the middleman and trying to protect himself against being swept under the rug like this in a big way is why those tapes exist. Maybe. Either way, I don't know how the hell they're going to make it to the air either, or if they will. I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah. Well, apparently James O'Keefe just put out a video today, or
Mhm.
is releases first ever footage from inside Epstein's private island mansion.
Mm-hmm.
And so apparently, like, O'Keefe, I think we talked about this last week. He like decided to go into hiding. He said, I got some major stuff coming out, and
Yeah.
this one scares me. And he went into hiding, and it's uh I think it's about to roll out because this just happened today, and I think he's about to roll out a bunch of craziness. So, but he's still in hiding. But I think that the Epstein stuff and the P. Diddy stuff is all tied together anyway. So I think that eventually, with the P. Diddy stuff, we may see an unraveling. But they're talking about that the Epstein files were all destroyed. However, there are some that they still have that are under British command, like the British government has a bunch of stuff that they're going to be tapping into, but that the FBI couldn't get a hold of to destroy. But
On the
I don't
Epstein
know.
part,
Yeah.
yeah. I wonder if that's because a certain prince may or may not have been involved in some of those visits.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was actually one of the videos that just came out from O'Keefe this week. That was the first video, was definitive evidence that he was
Yeah. So
engaged with minors.
MI5 is just going to hang on to that for until redacted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Jesus.
yeah.
Speaking of the Brits, dude, you have a
Yeah.
one-liner on here I'm curious about. You put 100 Brits versus 100 Americans, and then you said this is trending, and I'm the most unplugged from pop culture this year. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? What is this? What are the Brits versus the Americans? What are we talking? Are we talking about like a really big ass tea party on the East Coast, or like what? What are we competing against? Soccer?
Well, this is a spin-off of yeah. This is a spin-off of another internet explosion
Yeah.
that has been going on. But like in social media, whether it be TikTok, Instagram, or whatever, there's been a debate where people are making videos where they are asking the question, who would win in a full-out brawl? And stipulations have been made because they're like, duh. So the idea is 100 Brits
Yeah.
versus 100 Americans.
Okay.
And the Brits are like, oh, we've got this, we've got this. And of course, the Americans are like, you don't have weapons.
Mm-hmm.
We do. And they're like, okay, fair point. No weapons. And we're like, we still have this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
do you not understand the type of people we have here? We'll take 10 from Alaska, 10
Yeah.
from Appalachia, 10 from Texas, 10 crazy Floridians. You don't have a chance.
We'll
Like,
throw
it's
in a
not even
handful of soy
close.
boys to make it easy on you.
Yeah.
So context is everything. That's what I was wondering. It's like, no holds barred, bare knuckle only, locked in a warehouse, no
Yep.
nothing. It's just 100 versus 100, huh?
Yeah.
You know what the mathematical answer to that is? It's a coin flip. It's 50-50. Like there's
Yeah.
too many variables. You know what the real deep mathematical answer to that is? If measured in freedom eagles, I think we
Yeah.
win.
I think, and I would say that we win. I mean, because I'm trying to think of like if they got to hand pick their Brits, right? And you got Bronson types out there, and you've got like big, you know, Green Street hooligan types, and
Right.
you know, Bullet Tooth Tony types, and
Yeah.
stuff like that, right?
Just 100 brick tops.
Right. So, you know, even then, I don't think that ultimately even on 100-person scale, they're going to be able to match the absolute grit of the American spirit. Like, we just won't stop until we win. And that's it is what it is. That's just the American spirit. And I think that
So by nature of
come
your
in.
logic, you are also denoting that there's just a touch less gentlemanly nature of the American male than there is of the British male.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so
Yep.
too. Although I would be
Yeah.
worried if they come marching in with 100 copies of Henry Cavill and you're just like, God, that guy's big. Jesus.
Yeah.
All of you? There are so many Henry Cavills in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's hilarious. Because there's no
But
real answer to
Hawaii,
this.
I mean, we've
Yeah.
got Alaskans, we got like a bunch of Samoan dudes. I mean, we could just wreck house. Like, it's not
Yeah.
even fair.
Even if you put a bunch of bath salt smoking Floridian underpass dwellers in there, that's still going to be a tough match for the Brits.
Yeah.
They're just going to eat your face. What they'll do.
Well, you have to be able to feel pain to lose, right?
Yeah, it's true.
So, I mean,
Oh my God. You've just unlocked the premise of 28 years later. It's really 100 Brits versus 100 dope smoking Americans.
so my bet is on the Americans, obviously. But what about the other one, which is 100 men
Yeah.
versus one gorilla?
Yeah.
And now I've seen this go back and forth. Mainly people are like, absolutely, the gorilla's going to tear apart 100 dudes. It doesn't matter what dudes they are. He's going to tear them apart. They can't overwhelm him enough in order for the gorilla not to win.
100 guys is a lot of dudes.
Yeah, it is.
If they're all attacking at the same time.
But my opinion got changed on this when I saw a video of like the South African guy who actually was a white South African guy, but he was a special ops dude down there.
Yeah.
And he goes, no. He's like, they don't know how to fight.
Right.
They get bewildered. Really, they're all bluster and banging around and screaming and roaring. But if you punch one in the face, it doesn't know what to do.
Right.
It goes. It would be very easy for 10 guys to take one down.
That's kind of where I was leaning, but like I would not want to be the first guy because gorillas can bite pretty strongly, and I'm fairly certain they could like tear a man in half. Like those, just like so it's not like, oh man, he punched me. It's
would
like,
have to be a coordinated strike.
He took my arm off and then started chewing on it. Like there's levels to this.
Right, and the first strike would definitely have to be a coordinated strike.
Yeah.
So like it would have to be a multi-pronged from multiple angles, and yeah, for sure. But I don't know. I think that like a silverback gorilla is terrifying.
It is.
And if you're one-on-one, that's one thing.
Right.
But I'm thinking with 10 dudes, we're gonna get hurt, but we're gonna get the job done. 100 dudes, I think it's too overwhelming. I think there's just no way the gorilla comes out on that, and he probably kills 2 dudes, maybe 3, before he gets completely overwhelmed.
I would probably spot him 5. I mean, even if he clunks you in the head, it could break a spine just from flailing. you're not going to win an arm wrestling contest with a gorilla. So,
No,
like,
I mean, a chimpanzee has the strength of like 3 men.
I
So like,
I kind of wonder, man, with stuff like this floating around the internet, like how far away from the Running Man are we? Like maybe it's just on basic cable at some point, but like, I mean, if these are pop cultural phenomena ideas floating around, we're not far off.
you know that they're making a Running Man 2?
I've heard this for about a year and a half. Yeah, I don't know much
Yeah.
more than like this is supposed to be happening. I've heard as much as
It's a remake, I think.
yeah.
more than
I mean,
anything.
I on that vein, I recently watched the new Total Recall with Colin Farrell and my girl Kate Beckinsale.
Yeah.
So like I think they're just reprinting some of the old ideas and stuff. I had heard that the guy from Top Gun Maverick that plays the Iceman character but younger,
Yeah.
Glenn something. I heard he's supposed to be the
Glenn
Running
Powell.
Man. Yeah, Glenn Powell.
Yeah.
I heard he's supposed to be the Running Man, but this was all like internet conjecture from a year ago, so like I have no idea. But are they actually going through with it?
As far as I know, yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard that this is actually going through.
Nice.
So, and I'd be interested. I'd like to see what they redid with that one.
I hope
As
they
long
keep
as
the bad guy costumes the exact same.
Yeah.
Stupid and campy and trench coats and chainsaws.
I was. What did you think of the Total Recall remake? I mean, other than the eye candy of Kate Beckinsale and who was
Yeah.
the other girl?
I want to say Jessica Biel, but I don't know if that's
Yeah.
right.
That is right. Yeah.
For what the movie is, it was super duper fun. It was nice to see that it was done with modern special effects or more modern special effects. This film came out in like 2013 or something. It was
Yeah.
quite a while ago. I didn't care for the premise versus the first one. I didn't like the
Right.
the colonies and the fall and the, you know, this,
Right.
that, and the other thing, and some deranged
of-
prime minister is just gonna fucking take over with his robot army was kind of like not a clutch move. So for the
lack of
effects,
Mars.
yeah, for the effective stuff, cool. Will it ever be as good as the initial Total Recall in my eyes? Not even close. But it was a
Yeah.
fun watch. So, you know,
Did they even have a Quado in that one?
the yeah.
Quaid.
No. No, they have some monsters that kind of tip their hat to that. It was nice to see the Harold and Kumar guy in there too. That was fun.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And then
they painted Recall up to being like an actual establishment. So they really took a ton of liberties with like, we're going to write the story in this direction, where it was not necessarily the case the whole time. But I don't know. Colin Farrell's fun to watch in action movies. He pretty much kicks
for
ass.
sure.
So it was a great popcorn film. I didn't hate it as much this time around as I did the first time, where I was like, this isn't right. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's still not
I think
the same.
I'm on the same page as you with that. Where I, at first, in the first watch, I was like, "You're veering too far from the story," and it distracted me. And then on a second watch, I was just like, "This is just a really fun sci-fi film."
Yeah,
like I like it. It's
if they
fun.
changed the name from Recall and all the character names, but kept the story and did something different, like titled it something different, I'm sure it would have done better at the box office, because it wasn't a shot-for-shot remake with the way they wanted it to come out or anything. Like a lot of the same people weren't even involved. So, but yeah, that's where I landed, was like the second time around. That's not even my movie review for this week, but
yeah, no, I'm sorry, everybody. Like I said, I tried to watch Conclave last night and I fell asleep, but I have not had a lot of time to watch anything, like, and really nothing's been coming up. Like I think there's a new movie called Novocaine I wanted to watch.
Havoc is good.
Oh, I gotta watch Havoc too.
Havoc is good.
So Havoc and Novocaine are the two that and I've been keeping up on Mobland.
Yeah.
So but Havoc is the Tom
Hardy. No.
Tom Hardy. I almost called him Tom Brady. The Tom Hardy film that I got to watch. And then Novocaine is the Jack Quaid new one. He's where he can't feel pain. And it's like this action comedy thing. It looked entertaining, so I'll take a look at it. But that came up. But outside of that, I'm having a hard time finding non-horror movies. Like
Yeah.
there's a ton of horror movies out that I'm kind of backloading for my October run, but I don't want to watch them now. I want
Yeah.
to wait until October so I can actually do reviews on horror movies
You'll
in
have
October.
30 whole days to get through. I have one that was deceptively good.
Oh yeah.
I came into this movie with really low expectations and chose not to watch the preview before just turning it on. And I was actually kind of blown away. It's shot remarkably well. We'll start there. Like the cinematography in it is fantastic, and it takes place in the San Juan Islands of Western Washington. And while I know they shot it in a different location than that, they made it very compelling to think that you were there, coming from a guy that lived in that neck of the woods for a long time. It's called Lou. The movie's called Lou. And it's about this old woman that kind of lives on an island by herself with a dog. And the story unfolds that she has a cabin property that's, you know, just down the road from her house that she rents out to a single mother with a daughter. And she's kind of a cold and prickly character, like kind of does whatever she wants to around town, and no one really messes with her as much. And like, you know, oh, I wanted that, and she just takes it out of their cart and pays for it because she needs it, and like goes home, kind of thing. But the more you discover about this woman, the more you realize that she had a really interesting past as an intelligence officer in the CIA. And the premise is there's an evil, like she's kind of a cold-hearted bitch, even to her tenant. But there's this evil ex-husband of the tenants that comes back and kidnaps the daughter. And then Lou kind of like snaps into old lady CIA person action. And it's just her and her dog, and they're traipsing around, but they don't make her superhero like she gets her ass beat by the weather, by the circumstances, by traps. And it's like this weird, almost Walker, Texas Rangery, like ex-husband kidnapping daughter fight through the woods with CIA tracker Lou. Meanwhile, like all the other elements that start to discover what's going on begin to kind of close in on them, and you're not necessarily sure that Lou's actually the good guy in the story about midway through. And it's really fucking fun. It was like way more fun than I thought it was going to be. I was like, oh shit. And they actually cast it really well. There are a bunch of actors that I hadn't seen before and a couple that I had. It is mostly done with single and double camera stuff. So it was, you know, not like a ridiculously high-end production, but this was a Netflix original story. And man, it was good. It was super fun. So I recommend Lou. I'm going to give it 7 whole megs. And it was because the surprise factor for me was I was expecting this to be, I'll probably turn this off 30 minutes in if this is going to be a dialogue piece about a woman's past that no one cares about. And I just wasn't in the mood for a thinker. Right. What I got was like a pretty kick-ass thriller with some neat special effects that were done on a low budget, but convincing, and a beautifully shot cinematography for that area and some of the shit she goes through.
You are frozen.
It was really good. Oh no, I can still hear you. Can you hear me? Are you there?
Yeah, no, I can hear you now. Yeah, you froze and then sped up real quick. So I don't know what it was, but
hopefully the recording catches it well. But anyway, I was really shocked at how much fun I had watching that. So, and it's pretty
I'm
much
gonna put that on my list. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty much a over and done, and I feel like about an hour and a half, hour 45, something like that. But it takes a lot of unexpected fun twists, and some things are predictable, some things are not. But yeah, that's where we're at with that. So 7 megs there. I had a good time, unexpectedly.
Hey, do you think that's awesome? I want to see that. Do you think that if we asked our audience to email us a bunch of random conspiracy theories, like send us in all of the ones you want me to talk about, I will put on my hat and I will tell you whether or not I believe them.
Yeah.
and then expand upon them. So send us all of them, and that way I don't know which ones they are. And that way, when we go into that segment, which we'll call Conspiracy Corner or something to that effect, that I can go, okay, yeah, no, I don't believe this one, and here's why. Or, oh, yeah, no, this one's true. Let me go into it. And,
Yeah.
but without, so that I'm not like picking the category, I want them to pick it. So it's kind of a surprise. I thought that would be pretty fun.
We should. Modern Relics Podcast at gmail.com. And I can even participate, even if I take the alternate view. But I also have a conspiracy hat that I've created for such a segment just as this as well. So I'll be as prepared as I can be off the cuff with some hot takes for all of you.
I'm so jealous of your tinfoil hat, dude. You did a really good job there.
Capital C. I kind of want to put a little antenna on it next. So maybe this will continue to grow as time goes on. I don't know. But yeah, I'm pretty hyped on it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, but you guys should, and email us your thoughts, modernrelicspodcast at gmail.com. We will.
But I think that would be a fun segment.
Yeah, we'll put it on as part of the show. So, what else you got? You got anything else this week? I got the Gospel by Gen Z.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
Let's hear some of the word.
All right, friends. Chapter 41. We're already there. This is called Unfinished Creation. And we get Christ Healing the Blind Man by Sebastiano Ricci, which is a beautiful illustration there.
Man, the paintings in that thing are gorgeous. He did a really good job curating the right paintings for this book.
Yeah, it's very elegantly absurd. As they skirted past a man born blind, they said, "Professor, as this is BC of his L's, like because of his L's, or is he catching strays from his parents?" Jesus said neither, but so that God may manifest who's him. Then Holy Bro did something seemingly out of pocket. He spat on the ground and made clay out of it and used it to paint eyes onto the man. And Jesus said, "Go and wash in the pool called It's Sending Me." So he did, and was today years old when he could first see. Some bros and Karens saw the man seeing and said, "Hold up, did someone drop an update on this man?" Others said, "Nah, he's just twinning with the blind bro." But he said, "Nah, fam, it's me, for real." And they said, "Who unlocked your sight?" He said, "Jesus, but he ghosted us." So they brought him to the house of Karen, for it was the Sabbath, and the Karens thought that it was an L to do stuff on that day. So they asked him to spill the tea, and again he did. Some Karens declared that Jesus was in fact not valid for this, but some real ones said, hold on. His act was based, right? And where does based come from? The valid one? The author of all that is valid and based, bro. You're going to look at me and you're going to tell me that I'm wrong. Am I wrong? And he gave sight to a man that was born blind. Doug, grow up, bro. Just grow up. And then the Karens asked the man, "What did you say about him?" And then the unblinded man said, "He's a divine dad lord narrator." Continued. Now they thought he was capping hard about being born blind, so they asked his parents and they said, "No cap." But about Jesus they said, "Say less," for the Karens were salty and resolved to cancel all who stand him. So the Karens told the healed bro, "Don't cap, for we know this man's L's left and right." And he said, "Fam, who knows if that's facts? All I know is I was blind." Bro said, "I'm blind, now I can see." And they said, "Okay, but like how?" And he said, "Bruh, I already told you. Why you asking? You trying to follow his page?" And they were salty again and said, "We only follow Moses, for we know Moses is a verified page, but this man does not have a blue check mark." Bro said, "Nah, because that's wild. Y'all say who knows if he's verified, yet he unlocked my sight. Everyone knows God stands, not ops, but real ones. And that's such an update as this has never dropped before. So as the maths, Jesus must be a real one. You know what I mean?" They said, "Nah, you and op mansplaining this to us," and they blocked him so fast. When Jesus heard that the bro was blocked, he pulled up and said, "Do you stand he who comes in clutch?" But bro said, "Fam, what's his at? Sacred blood, I'm him." An unblinded bro And unblinded bro simped for him. And this is what some ancient manuscripts read. And that's a really long chapter 41.
That was, but that was a great one. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Lazarus is up next. Can't wait. That's hard to do in the moment too when you don't pre-read this stuff because you're like, what? Unfortunate for those Karens. But stay blessed, all that stand for him. Just saying.
No cap.
Dude, how hard are your kids going to troll you for that?
Oh, dude. Yeah.
No cap.
They're just, they don't even listen to me anymore. So.
Oh my gosh.
We went for Mother's Day.
Yeah, how'd that go?
Went great. The kids helped me pay for dinner, and we took my mom and Aaron out to one of those really nice Brazilian steakhouse places, you know, where they come with the swords and yeah. And man, there were 6 of us total, and Kate brought Wiley, her boyfriend, and we laughed like the whole meal, like from beginning to end. All we did was just as a family like raucously laugh throughout that whole thing. And part of it was like us talking about the language differences, generational language differences. And so, but there was a lot of that. But yeah, my kids no longer hear me when I say stuff like that. They've just kind of learned to tune it out.
Wow, nice.
So, because I do it obviously intentionally to draw attention and to get under their skin, but I have done my fatherly duties and created such thick skin on them that now they're impervious to my dad pokes. So it no longer works. So I guess my job's done. They're all grown. I don't have to do anything anymore, and I get to walk away into the sunset as dads are supposed to do.
Well, congratulations, man.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Retirement. But
retirement, what's that like? Well, I think that's it for this week. We should be back on schedule next week. You're coming down end of next month, and then I'm hopefully going to be on vacation at some point around that neck of the woods too. So we might get to do some fun stuff in person for at least part of that.
Yeah.
But it's all kind of up to the boss whether or not my time's approved. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, that sounds great. And an update for anybody listening in the Vegas, Henderson, Lake Havasu area. I will be actually coming down 2 weeks after I originally said. I had to move my flight because of Friday the 13th, which I forgot was in the middle of that, and also Father's Day, which I forgot was in the middle of that. So I moved it from it'll be the 25th through the 1st of July. So that's when I will be in the Vegas area. So if you're looking to get tattooed at Mad Monk, that's where I'll be.
Sweet. Well, awesome. Suppose
right,
we will see everybody next week.
Yes, you will.